Eddie, brought to you by the United States Army Reserve, and I'm Alison Steele, the Nightbird.
Day in and day out it's humdrum. Give up, give in, give me a reason for living. Am I with someone? Am I alone? What does it matter? I'm on my own. When life was overbearing and a giant weight for me to carry, you helped me throw it all away. 'Cause I've got two arms that can touch you, and two eyes that have so much to see. I can breathe, I can laugh, I can swallow. I'm the world's best possible me. I can do anything that I want to. I can go anywhere that I please. I got nothing I gotta live up to. I'm the world's best possible me. Someone's tossed the dice. Wonder if I can be lucky twice. There's so much at stake. All that I ask is an even break. I think I matter. I feel so strong. It feels like my year. I can't go wrong. I thought my world was crumbling, and my folk rock boot heels were a stumbling. Now you're the diamond of my day. 'Cause I've got two arms that can touch you, and two eyes that have so much to see. I can breathe, I can laugh, I can swallow. I'm the world's best possible me. I can do anything that I want to. I can go anywhere that I please. I got nothing I gotta live up to. I'm the world's best possible me. It's possible. It's possible.
Flo and Eddie from the current album, Moving Targets, and I have to tell you, I've got the moving targets right in front of me in the studio today.
Hi. Not moving, though.
Not moving,
No,
not for the
it's
moment. If they
stationary.
stay still for a moment, that we should take a picture, a still picture, because it's a rare happening.
Yeah.
Welcome back. I'm so pleased to see
Thank
you
you.
again. It's been a long time.
It has.
Thank you. Yeah, a few years.
Yeah, now where have you guys been all this time?
Well,
Underground, I think some would say.
yeah.
Well, but you did that. You were underground years ago with the
I
Turtles
know.
and Zappa. I mean, you've
Yeah.
been there. Now it's something else.
Well, I don't know how long ago was it? A couple of years, I guess.
It's got to be 3 years
yeah,
at least.
since we did a show. We've made 2 albums since then. We had one called Illegal, Immoral, and Fattening,
I
which
loved
was
it. I
Not an
loved
airplay item.
It was for
Really?
me.
Really?
It was
Did
for
you
me.
get away with it at all?
Yes.
It
Yeah.
was definitely a
Interesting.
period piece. We felt it'll be kind of like a time capsulization
Yes.
of the success and
It
failure.
sent up
Yes,
a lot of
right,
groups
yeah.
and a lot of current trends that were happening, that even make last year unique.
Well, but the point is, you have kind of vacillated between being commercial and not being commercial. I mean, the first album that you came out with, the Fluorescent Leech and Eddie.
It was pretty inward, that album. We were kind of proving to everyone after the Zappa era
That you could do it.
that we could
Yeah,
write
and that,
songs.
And you did
besides, if we were to have recorded anything that was comedic at all, people would have gone, "Oh, look they
what
took
they've
everything
taken."
that they've done from Frank." We didn't want that feeling in our material.
okay. All right,
so
so
we
then-
thought, well,
all
get
right.
real sensitive, and
I'll
prove to
buy
people
that.
there's another side.
But what happened then? The next one was also still pretty
That was
commercial.
Bob Ezrin was brought in to produce that,
Right.
who produced Alice Cooper,
Cooper,
and
right.
Kiss.
So all of a
and-
sudden we had horns and strings.
and it was a little bit
No,
more...
it wasn't all bad.
No, it
I
had
like
some good elements in that album. Bob Ezrin sort of overpowered Howard and I a little bit on a production level, so we kind of fought that. We were kind of forced into leaving before the album was done so that we could get out on the tour with Alice, and it was also rushed that
Yeah.
the album didn't
we're
quite
constantly
get...
learning how to cope with this whole industry that we're in on another level than, trying to deal with that all the time. The competition of releasing a record,
Yeah.
running out to promote it, and then
Surviving on a
waiting.
record-to-record business
Yeah, right.
is not really what you hope to do. I mean, not us now. We sort of feel at this moment that we're not in a big hurry to prove overnight that we're going to be as big as Thin Lizzy or as Black Sabbath,
Yeah,
which is...
you don't need to because you've been around for a long time.
that's the
That's
element.
That's
of-
something that
Been
only
here since the
time
beginning,
teaches,
right, yeah.
I suppose I hate to sound like the old gummer of rock and roll or something, but, it's true. I don't mind that. I see our longevity as dealing with other things besides records.
We're
that-
just so media.
that do-
We're involved in so many elements of the media, on screenplays, writing in fiction and nonfiction.
2 of those 3
reviewing.
years that we haven't seen you, we've done radio ourselves.
I want to ask you about that, but it's a funny thing, Howard, about getting mature, is that the heat's off in a way, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
We've said even on record that we're not really living up to anything now.
That's right.
And it's so
pressure
much
is off.
easier.
Exactly.
I don't have to be a nervous kid anymore now. I can
Exactly.
be a nervous adult.
Yeah, right. No, but I mean, there isn't that thing that you got to make it. You've made it. I mean, you've achieved a modicum of fame and success, and it's there. And it's just a question of
Developing
degrees.
it.
Yeah.
And making sure that we're not bored with
Well,
what
that's
we're
it.
doing,
That's it.
so that we constantly move and progress.
It's
Otherwise,
it's
stale.
something like you got about yourself that we must start starting to get about ourselves, that we had something in the 60s that people remember. We want to do the same thing in the 80s that we're doing in the 70s, and that's have something constantly rejuvenating ourselves, experimenting, being able to always
Be ahead. This is what
moving
avant-garde
targets.
means.
And that's
Yeah,
why we're
this-
moving targets.
Absolutely.
The motor is running.
Absolutely.
I mean,
It's
if
sort of
this
like-
doesn't work, we'll try something else. But Howard
they
and
might
Mark
have
are
thought
cool.
they knew where we were, and moving targets is the element of maybe you really didn't, and we're somewhere else.
There's one element that you have to cope with, though, Mark, that I wonder how you deal with, and that is that essentially, and I'm sure you've both noticed it, that the American public, and maybe the world, I don't know them, but I know the American public is basically terribly reactionary. They get something they like and they hold on to it for
Yes.
dear life. They don't want to let it go. And conversely, all of a sudden one day they say, that's it, I'm finished.
Oh yeah, they're
Yeah.
a fickle bunch. That's why if you worry, in my opinion, if you worry about staying ahead of them, it's a losing fight.
Yeah.
We've tried to
Gotta
hope
go
that
your
one
own.
of these days they're going to catch up to us, and we can wait. We've got all the time in the
You're going
world.
to
and
march
it's
to your
working.
own drummer. We're going to take a moment here for a word from Army Reserve.
You learn what you're made of while you're earning your share. In the Army Reserve, you'll be proving that you can. While you're serving your country and your future besides. As a part-time soldier with full-time pride. Full-time pride. You earn when you serve in the Army Reserve. And part of what you earn is pride.
When you serve in the Army Reserve, you learn a skill and earn a second income. But there's another part to what you learn. It's something you pay for with your sweat, your spirit, your mind, and your time. And it's called pride.
You earn when you serve in the Army Reserve, and part of what you earn is pride.
This is the Nightbird, Alison Steele, for the United States Army Reserve. Our guest today, Flo and Eddie.
You got a thing about you, I just can't live without you. I really want you, Eleanor, near me. Your looks intoxicate me, even though your folks hate me. There's no one like you, Eleanor, really.
Eleanor G, I think you're swell, and you really do me well. You're my pride and joy, etc. Eleanor, can I take the time to ask you to speak your mind? Tell me that you love me better.
I really think you're groovy. Let's go out to a movie. What do you say now, Eleanor, can we? They'll turn the lights way down low. Maybe we won't watch the show. I think I love you, Eleanor, love me.
Eleanor G, I think you're swell, and you really do me well. You're my pride and joy, etc. Eleanor, can I take the time to ask you to speak your mind? Tell me that you love me better. Eleanor G, I think you're swell. Eleanor G, I think you're swell.
Eleanor, a lady who will undoubtedly be immortal now, since
Mysterious lady.
mysterious lady named Eleanor. She is on, or I should say, part of the Flo and Eddie album, Moving Targets, and I suspect that she won't be soon forgotten. Flo and Eddie are with us today. I know that I've asked you this before, so please forgive me, but my memory has failed me. I'm trying to remember why it was the fluorescent leech in Eddie.
Well, when we worked with Zappa,
Yeah.
when we went from the Turtles to the Mothers,
Right.
we were in a legal situation where we couldn't record as Mark Volman, Howard Kayla.
Right.
And so it was like we had left high school and at the age of 17 into the Turtles and all of that. And at 23, the lawyers were saying,
You can't record. And that was all we knew how to do, really.
And,
And we were looking gloom.
It was kind of
eye to eye.
dumbfounding, that whole period, because we just didn't understand why we couldn't, do just something simple like that. And that whole bit, we just, when we went with Frank, and we did an album called Chunga's Revenge, and we had to come up with aliases.
Quick, call yourselves something. We
Yeah.
can't use Howard and Mark. So I said, okay, Fluorescent Leech and Eddie, on account of we had two roadies. No, not out of the blue.
Yeah.
We had two roadies in the old Turtle days. One was very Carnaby Street with an afro cut and scarves and very contemporary even now. And the other guy just sort of looked like your normal college
Eddie.
hi mom, hi dad. Eddie.
Okay,
he was
fluorescent
Eddie,
leech and
right
Eddie.
Fluorescent Leech and Eddie.
And that got down to Flo and Eddie.
Flo and Eddie.
Wouldn't fit on the marquee the other way.
Also, it's sort
Now
of...
you're stuck with it.
Yeah,
Can I
it's-
ask which one is Flo? I mean, do you mind?
No, I am.
Oh,
Mark
okay.
is Flo.
It was funny, I always started out as Eddie, and then when the first album came out, I was on the other side.
You switched and you
and
became
it was
Flo.
the picture
Okay,
was
well
flexible.
now I'm informed again, and I'm sure a lot of of our listeners wonder about that, so we had to get that out of the way. Now I want to take a moment, with your permission, for a word from my friends from Army Reserve. You know, when money's tight, you ought to think about what you're doing with your time, and here's why. The Army Reserve can give you a good part-time job that only takes 16 hours a month, plus 2 weeks annual training. You don't even have to have a special skill. If you meet the requirements, they will train you in a skill, like finance, dental technology, computer programming, driving a bulldozer, or any number of other jobs. You choose the job you want from the openings available in your local unit, and they will pay you full Army salary while they're training you. After a few months away from home, you'll get back to a good, steady part-time job that pays about $50 a month. After a while, you'll be doing it for more than just money, because part of what you earn is pride. Another cut from Moving Targets. Here they are, Flo and Eddie.
It started out so simple and got so far out of hand, making showbiz out of what was fun. From the time I stopped my schooling and went out to start a band, I've been living every minute on the run. And I've tried to be all that you hoped I'd be. Just because things went wrong, don't run out on me. I need you, mama. Open up, I'm coming back in. I don't like it out here no more. Mama, open up, I'm coming back in. I don't like it out here no more. I'm overweight, I'm underpaid. No one's beating you back to my door. Mama, open up, I'm coming back in. I don't like it out here. Hotel rooms and flying tunes and food I couldn't chew. From the Fillmore to the White House, chasing fame. But nobody hears my records, and my roof is leaking too. After all these years, my life appears in vain. They still say just one hit and you're doing fine. But I'm bored with the game and I'm short on time. I wanna end it, mama. Open up, I'm coming back in. I don't like it out here no more. Mama, open up, I'm coming back in. I don't like it out here no more. I'm overweight, I'm underpaid.
Flo and Eddie from Moving Targets. And the album is somewhat different. There's progression. Howard's wearing a tie. That's progress, isn't
That
it?
was a rare
It was
occasion
they caught you
again.
in a rare moment with feathers flying and the tie. But I was
Yeah.
terribly impressed when I saw that. Really
Oh, thanks,
impressed.
I guess.
Now, you told me before we went on the air, you mentioned your radio show at KMET. Well, tell me, I didn't hear about
Right.
this, and you'd think I would. It's my sister station out there. In
Yeah,
LA.
That's true.
Well, we started off at another station and wound up over at Metro Media, and we did about 2 years. Eventually, it was a talk show where we brought on guests who, it started out to be just our friends. We had like Alice Cooper come down and Keith Moon and people
That we knew on a different level than, an
course.
interview sort of a
Of course.
situation. So rather than saying, hey, Keith, how did you form, The Who? What was the...
Yeah, right.
You weren't dealing with that. It was just sort of, hey, remember that night in
That's
Wichita
it.
that the
That's
hotel
right.
went up in smoke? It was much more
We also
informal.
dealt live telephones, so kids could call in and talk to Keith or talk to Harry Nielsen, talk to the drummer from Queen or for the
Dynamite.
guys from Kiss.
How long did listen to her stutter, the great radio announcer? How often were you on? It wasn't an every
Well, it
night
was
show.
once
It was
a
a
week.
weekly show that
And
we
how
did.
long did it go?
At KMET, well, we ran for about 2 years at both
No, I
stations.
mean-
2 hours. We
2
did
hours.
2-hour
Yeah.
shows. And some
must
were
have been
pre-taped.
fun.
When we went out on tour,
Yes.
we would do like 3-4 weeks in advance
Mm-hmm.
and run them while we were gone. And the reason we eventually gave it up was the touring element.
Too
Plus,
much.
we, like yourself, we got into syndicating of our show,
Yes.
which we found was a real business.
Yes.
And
Well, to keep a band together and have to worry about editing shows down,
Yes,
and shipping
yeah.
them out,
Well, right.
and ad time, and
It's
all that.
dissipating your efforts because that's really not where your
I
heads
don't
are at.
mind spreading myself out, but when it comes to things that I really don't want to deal with,
Yeah,
business type things,
exactly.
I'd rather
We've
get
got-
creative
that's
about
right.
it.
We're going to take a moment here again for a word from Army Reserve, and then hear more of Moving Targets.
Hi, this is Mike Love of the Beach Boys. When you serve in the Army Reserve, you learn a skill and earn a second income. But there's another part to what you earn. It's something you pay for with your sweat, your spirit, your mind, and your time. It's called pride.
You earned when you served in the Army Reserve, and part of what you earned is pride.
And now here they are, Flo and Eddie.
No silver bullets, no ball and chain, no imagination.
Flo and Eddie, gosh, I had about 4,000 more questions, but
we're available after
few
the
more
show.
shows.
Okay, but I want to tell you that I love the album, and I think the fans do too, because I've had a lot of good response on it. And
Well, it's good to be back.
I'm sure you guys
I'll
are
tell
going to
you,
be around
it's
forever.
really nice to hear, people getting interested in us again. It's made us think that, all
Not
of
again.
our...
It never let up. It may not have been mass sales all this time, but you have a certain cult of followers that
Definitely.
are devoted and will never give you up.
Well,
Thanks for
Thank
coming
you.
out
Thank
to
you,
see us.
really,
Flo and
anytime.
Eddie. And this is the Nightbird, Alison Steele, reminding you that in the Army Reserve, part of what you earn is pride.
I was a loser in my life until I met your